What is the purpose of a public trail? Is it to exist without being used? No, obviously not. Specifically, what is the purpose of a recreational trail? It's to provide a trail for the public, and the public needs to know where to go. What does this? A map. I'm Lincoln Ruthier, and I made a map. Before I dive into detail, let me provide some context. For my project, I knew I wanted to do something with the trails behind BHS. When I was brainstorming, I was considering rerouting the cross-country course, adding material and irrigation to the trail, or even adding more trails of my own. However, all of these things had one missing piece in common. There's no map that shows the trails. Right around the same time, a previous teacher here at the high school presented some potential interest in my project. This would be Mr. Drew Groves. So I got in contact with him. He referred me to a local map maker in Dunbarton and shared with me some of his maps. These maps were detailed and thorough. These made me realize that this project was going to take more than I thought. I would need a mapping program. I was introduced to a few different programs, including AccessGIS and ArcGIS from both Mr. Groves and Oliver Dolcino. I fiddled around with both, choosing backgrounds and settings to fit what I had in mind. However, before I could start anything on a computer, I needed to go out and actually collect the data. Using Strava, a GPS tracking system for athletes, I went outside and walked the trails. I also used previous data from the cross-country season to aid in my GPS data collection. Once I had covered all the trails, it was time to translate from one map to another. I started basic, mapping in easy trails and adjusting them to be accurate. This was a process of trial and error, something that would pop up quite often down the line. After hours of adjusting and readjusting, I finally had a map that accurately represented the trails around BHS. Next step, build some signs. This would prove to be the most time-consuming and frustrating part of the project. Again, I started simple. However, I didn't bother to make a distinguished plan as to how to build my signs. This would prove to slow my process quite a bit, restricting me from finishing in a timely manner. To start, I cut a 15 by 11 board from pressure-treated wood. These signs would have to endure the brutal New England weather, so they need to be waterproof. Knowing this, simply laminating the maps would be insufficient, as they would get ruined over time. So, I did some research on other outdoor maps and found that plexiglass would be the best option of cover for each sign. The process to cut the plexiglass was not easy. The process includes scoring the glass, which involves cutting thin, precise cuts slowly cut away at it. After 2 failed attempts ending in chipped glass, I decided to risk using a bandsaw. Halfway through one of my cuts, the bandsaw blade broke. One trip to Lowe's and $10 later, I was cutting once again. Once the plexiglass was cut to size, it was time to put it all together. This is where lack of planning came in. The wood I used for the signs split under the pressure of the screws. Long story short, I had to rebuild all 3 of my signs from the start. Adding a protectant layer of exterior paint would also add to the durability of the signs, so I painted each sign 3 coats each. Due to poor planning and lack of time management, this project is still incomplete. However, it is just a few finishing touches away from being posted out on the trails. This whole process was more involved than I had predicted, and it shows. One lesson I can pull from this is to talk to people with experience first, to get a full idea as to how to plan for a project. I'd like to thank my parents, Mr. Groves and Ms. Armstrong, for helping me and pushing me along the project. It's been a long process, but it's almost done. Thank you all for listening to my senior project, my presentation. Are there any questions?
How did you get in contact with Mr. Groves?
Email. Thank you, Sasha. Adam.
What do you have left to do with what about the
I basically just need to, one of the maps got screwed up in the laminating process, so I'm going to need to print out another one of those, get it laminated, and then it's just a matter of screwing the plexiglass over the map and getting them up onto some trees on the trails. Yeah, Jocelyn?
In the future, would you ever want to make kind of like your own trail?
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. It's a pretty small area, and there's already quite a few trails, but there's definitely some open space to do something fun like that. Cassie?
How many signs are you in, or
I'm putting out 3 signs. So one of them is going to go near the intersection by the SAU parking lot. One of them is going out in the smack dab middle of the trails where they get really confusing by the cross-country course, and another one's going out by the batting cages out back. Yep.
Do you have a copy of the map somewhere where the general public can get?
I don't, but that's actually a fantastic idea. That's something I should definitely consider doing.
If you do it, I'll be glad to have a look.
Thank you.
Mr. Dunn,